So I wrote the book Lessons of Redemption because of a couple things. I think the first was that I wanted people to understand the plight of a drug dealer, right? Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about people that deal drugs. And the other was that I wanted young people to really understand what they were getting themselves into if they decide to deal with drugs. And then the last one was, it was therapeutic for me. So writing Lessons of Redemption was just as healing for me as it was for a person that decides to read it and they really get something out of it, right? Because so writing was a way for me to heal the old wounds that I had received while I was in the streets, while I was dealing drugs, while I was in that business, the friends that I lost, the relationships that I lost, the trust that I lost, the people that were killed, the people that went to prison, the people that became addicted for the rest of their lives, and they were lost in a sense. So it was helpful in so many ways, and I had so many reasons, all good reasons to actually do it. So that was my reason. I began to understand my actions and consequences on the community a lot better when I was incarcerated. Although while I was dealing drugs, I knew it was wrong. I knew basically selling poison to other people was wrong. But at that time, I wasn't that much concerned with that. And I kind of just buried that away. But then later on in prison, I really had a lot of time to think about things I had done, things I was involved in, a lot of the mistakes that I made. And I realized that I don't care what type of poverty situation you come from. I don't think it's okay to harm other people to better your life. I just don't believe that. Whether it's drugs, whatever it is, I don't think it's okay to harm someone else to better your life. And so as I started to like grasp at that, because a lot of times we create this thing in our heads where, well, it's just a little drugs. It's not that bad, right? It is that bad because you're harming other people's lives, right? So these other people are fathers, our mothers, our sons, our daughters, and their families have to deal with all the stuff that they're going through. So when you look at the life of an addict, man, I wouldn't want to put that on anybody, like the life of an addict. So when you're adding to that pain, yeah, you're playing a big role in the detriment of society. And so, again, it was in prison that I really started to understand my role in this whole equation and started trying to figure out, well, because it's one thing to say, I don't want to sell drugs, and I don't want to commit crimes, and I don't want to go back to prison. And all that's great. But also, the big question, how you going to eat? Because if you've been selling drugs your whole life and you don't have, or you think you don't have other job skills, you don't have another way to feed yourself or feed your family, then now that decision to walk away from that business, it becomes a lot more complicated. And so the question I had to answer for myself in prison was, how are you going to eat if you decide to walk away from this business? So I had to figure out other ways to eat. So in prison, I took college courses, and I tried to educate myself to give me more tools so that when I did get out of prison, selling drugs just wasn't my only option. I had other options where I could take care of myself, take care of my family, and survive. And those tools that I was able to get in prison, they really were helpful in me moving things forward. in my life. They really helped me hit the ground running with knowledge and a toolkit of skills that so I could be able to get a job. Because one of my first jobs was actually actually working in a mortgage company, which was crazy. And I ended up excelling at that work. And I was fresh, you're talking roughly 4 months out of the penitentiary. After a total of almost 12 years, looking back, I didn't realize at the time how big it was, because you're in the moment. But looking back now, that was huge. For a guy coming from that space to be able to do those things, that was a big deal. So the fear that I had internally of dealing with the streets, the fear I had internally with dealing with prison, the fear I had internally of seeing violence. So I kind of call it's a process where you wear the mask, right? So we all wear the mask at some point where we cover up the pain, right? So you keep the smiley face, but inside you're dying, right? So in the streets, for me, I had to wear the mask. I didn't love selling dope, right? Because again, you knew it was wrong. I loved the money, but I didn't love the process. I didn't love all the baggage that came along with it. So I had to wear the mask. I had to wear the mask of a tough, sociopath that if you owe him money, he's gonna kill you. I was far from that, right? But again, you wear the mask. In the penitentiary, this crazy environment, sociopaths, psychopaths, predators all around you. Literally the same people that are in the street, in a sense, because the same people in prison are the people that were once in the street involved in mayhem. So now they're confined, they're still involved in mayhem. And so if you can survive the street, you can survive prison. But you still find yourself wearing the mask, right? That this environment is okay, it doesn't get to me, I can stand it, I can take it, this is no big deal, when in actuality it's a huge deal. I mean, your freedom has just been snatched away from you. So if that doesn't bother you, then something else is really going on. And then the, seeing the violence in the streets after a while, early on, yeah, you're wearing the mask. You can't show fear. You can't show that it bothers you. So you wear the mask. But then as time goes on, you get numb. You get numb to the violence. So growing up in Baltimore, you actually grow up with violence. Now it could be in your immediate space, or it could be further away or down the street. You might just hear about it on the news, but you're probably going to hear about it every single day. And if it's in your space, you're probably going to see it every single day. So after a while, you get numb. Like you don't even feel the pain anymore. You don't even feel the pain of what's going on in the streets. I remember the very first time I saw a guy get shot. I was 16 years old in a club in the dark, and I was terrified. And then the second time I was in the park, guy got shot in the head, and we rode by. I was probably 19, 20 years old, and I didn't feel anything at that time. I was literally numb by that period. Mind you, I also grew up with violence in the home. So violence wasn't nothing new to me. But then now you're seeing it even more in the streets, in the game. I'm being shot at. I'm shooting at the other people to protect myself. And now you're just numb. Like you don't even feel it anymore. You don't even feel the pain. And that's how I talk about it. It was ironic that even writing Lessons of Redemption, I buried away all of those feelings. But then when I started writing the book, all those feelings started coming back out, because now I'm starting to remember these situations. Now I'm starting remembering what it felt like to be shot at, what it felt like to shoot at somebody else, what it felt like to see a dead body. And now it's starting to come back, and now I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I remember what this felt like. So that was just a crazy, crazy time for me. So I found writing Lessons of Redemption very therapeutic. I found it a very good way to address the demons that I was dealing with. Because once you kind of put those thoughts down on paper, it's no longer something that you're hiding, because now the whole world can read it. And it's no longer something that you're concerned about other people finding out, because now it's published to the world. So there are no more secrets. So that's another monkey off your shoulder, right? For lack of a better word. And for me, looking back, just writing that book, it changed me dramatically. Because, like I said, I had buried away all those feelings for so many years. Didn't even know it. Didn't even realize it. I literally buried away all of that stuff. And when it came back up, it was like, wow, this is amazing that the human brain is that sophisticated where it could just brush that stuff aside for years, all the pain, and hide it in the corner of your psyche, you know, and then when it's time to write, it could just pull it right back up. Because I started remembering stuff that I totally forgot. As I wrote, my memory started to come back, and I could literally smell the gunpowder. I could smell like the block. I could smell like the old ladies in the neighborhood cooking dinner. Like all this stuff started coming back to me, and it was weird. It was crazy, but I can point back to that situation and clearly say that made me a better man. It made me a better person, because I was able to get that stuff off my chest and move on with life. The message I would have for the readers or the people that haven't read the book yet, the message that I would have is that there's so many layers to this story. There's so many layers to the conversation in our society about substance abuse and the socio-economic impact of drugs on our society. There's just so many layers, right? So, but one of the things that I want to leave to the reader is that it's a true story. Every word is real. Every event happened. And this is what's going on right now in some of your neighborhoods, in many of your cities across the world. And I think it's important for us to understand our society. We have to understand the plight of the underground business of dealing drugs, as well as the disease of addiction and how it affects families and people all across the world.